I want to make a small announcement that we're just advancing one panel discussion before because there's a little flight delay and the speaker has to arrive and he's arrived and before he comes, we just thought that we can advance a panel before and thanks for the speakers for agreeing to it. And it's a very, very interesting panel that everyone would really like to know about this. So, the omni-channel age that we are into has the physical retail converged with the digital world. And see, even I am confused at some point of time in my life that because when they say that there's people see things online and buy offline, and there are some people who see things and they go to trial rooms and try it offline and buy the same thing online. But however we say, when it comes to a Diwali sale, if you go to Ranganathan Street in T Nagar, you cannot find actually 1 centimeter to walk. So we really don't know what is exactly happening on this front. So to have a lot of insights and a lot of knowledge about this, I'd like to call the most elite panel which is going to talk about this, which has been moderated by Mr. Yesudas S Pillai, founder and CEO of Y&A Transformation. And the panelists are Suman Saha, CEO, Arrow, Mr. Vignesh Murali, Head Marketing, Brand and Corporate Communications, Equitas Small Finance Bank, and Ms. Kavitha Srinivasan, founder and CEO of Coeus Communications. So I'd like to call them on stage.
All right, good afternoon once again, all of you. And as Uma promised, that the auditorium is going to be full in about half an hour. I can see a lot more faces compared to the time that I came on the stage last. Thank you all. We have about 45 minutes. I can see the clock ticking there. We got an elite panel here. The introduction already happened, so I'm not going to spend time introducing the panel again. I'll try and moderate it in a way that the audience actually get 3-4 takeouts when we really end this conversation. The topic of the conversation is about has the digital and the physical world converged, or So we will, of course, look at the fundamentals of convergence, what really convergence means to businesses like this, and from an observer's point, Kavitha. We've also heard some conversations about data, so we'll also look at the role that data plays in convergence. There is an overarching theme here which is about the omni-channel. Although Ram said there is nothing called omni-channel consumer, I mean, I completely agree with him, but I have to do justice to the theme of the presentation. So we'll basically talk about the omni-channel consumer and look at how brands are investing to stay relevant to the omni-channel consumer. And perhaps then, if there are any conversations that's coming along on the way, we'll pick maybe 1 or 2 other topics. Essentially, we'll also probably like to end with, this is all thing about customer service and customer experience that gets spoken about these days. We can also probably touch upon, is there a difference between really customer service and customer experience? And if it is, what is it? And what are brands doing? So without much ado, we'll get started. So we will keep about 10 minutes for Q&A at the end. So about 35, 40 minutes, I think we will get on with the conversation. So, let me ask the 2 of you gentlemen here. You got about 1,300 owned company stores and about 5,000 plus MBOs and departmental stores. You got about 1,000 plus bank branches. There is a lot of action happening on the online space as well, right? Now, a lot of companies are today talking about digital transformation, which is about system processes internally to ensure that digital and physical world converges. Just give us some insights about your businesses as to how you see the convergence happening and what are fundamentals of convergence for your business and how are you tackling it? Suman, you can probably pick that.
So, at the outset, I agree with Ram. There is no omni-channel consumer. Consumer is consumer. What has happened fundamentally is the purchase pathway has gotten altered post-COVID. You know, how people discover your brands, how people sort of make choice for your brand and product has fundamentally altered. And I look at it as three separate buckets, and all conversation about purchase is about the sell side of it. There is also supply and there is also create, right? You know, a lot of actions are happening on the selling side of it. It is to say, how do I sort of get more efficient on the selling side of it? How do I create more delight at the selling side of it? The real convergence is going to happen when the supply and the create side are getting linked to the sales side. The real convergence is when your assortment in our business starts reflecting the consumer values that the consumer is saying, and that you know from your data, and therefore do you have a value chain to sort of make that input work into your product. Currently, the way our industry is and the way we stand, I think a lot of progress are happening on the last mile piece of it, creating what I say a seamless view of inventory, a seamless view of what is called omni, right? That I'm contextually omnipresent. But the creation is of an old school, right? Your lead times of mind to market, depending on which person you talk to, is between 12 to 14 months. That's really not so quick, and therefore there's a bit of a disjointedness there. But what is undeniable is consumer is finding newer ways of discovering your brands. So therefore, one part of the organization is moving faster than other departments, but I think there is a lot of work to be done on the supply side of it, as well as on the creation side of it, to really get that integrated, seamless flow of information, product changes, and to get consumer at the center of it. That's really the first challenge. Second challenge, and that is probably more pertinent for apparel brands which are multi-channel. Right? When you're multi-channel, your business model doesn't allow you visibility into the consumer behavior of your partner. Because typically, whoever you talk to, 40 to 50% of your sale is through your control network. What about the balance 40%? Right? There you get a sketchy idea of things. So if you ask me, what is the total number of consumers you cater to? I will not give you a finite answer because I don't know. I'll tell you through control channels how many consumers that I sort of serve, but that's really part of the story. Therefore, the real convergence would mean for me two things: when you're able to integrate everything and when you have a holistic data on consumer. That's really for me where we are, and depending on, in our company we're working on it. I'm sure across industry, across other companies, that's where the emphasis is.
Interesting. So just to kind of ask another question on that, before we get to him. So do you have for example, there are consumers coming on your physical places today and writing some review on a piece of on a paper there, on a book there. Online, somebody else is reviewing it and probably leaving some comments there. So is there a system internally for you to merge it and bring it together? Do you get a single view of customer frictions and comments, etc. happening?
So there is some traditional sources which are getting upgraded through use of technology. So you have an efficient CRM program, right? So you actually can slice and dice that data, create models, that's one piece of it. Now there are now technological interventions to actually track that cohort behavior across social media, track their behavior across within the sort of legal matrices that have been put down to understand and glean some of the insights. That work is there, but that is also working on one part of it. Now, given you an insight, how quickly are you able to turn around? How quickly are you able to make the change remains an area where it is underfunded at the moment.
I was actually talking to a finance client some time back, and the conversation was actually about this, about transformation and digital transformation. So it's an insurance client. And what came up, so I typically, my question to him was that, so how much of people buy directly from you today? He said about 2.3% or something like that was the number. I said, where have you transformed? He said, no, everything happens digitally now. Everything is on computer. So there is a misnomer, in my opinion, about process automation versus digital transformation. Digital transformation to me is about cutting the layers between you and your consumers. That's not, process automation is the computerization. So in your business, if I were to ask you, how digitally transformed are you? I mean, what would be your answer?
So thank you for this opportunity. I would say there have been two events, especially in the BFSI space, which has been a game changer in terms of the consumer behavior. One is demon happened, and second is COVID. Post demon, I think everybody will agree in this room, we all were impacted, and the UPI era started, and the entire payment industry got transformed. And post COVID, where the entire model is people, we have 17,000 employees, out of which 4,000 employees' job is to go and meet clients, ask them to open accounts or lend. They were all sitting at home. And then we had this new normal called work from home, and adoption of digital became mandatory. We were very ready at the day one, and we had this product called Selfie. Selfie is a product, something similar to Kotak 811, where a customer can open an account sitting at home. And RBI came up with many regulatory framework where the entire contactless KYC could happen. So now what has happened in the last 2 years? Equitas as a brand, in terms of liability space, we have opened 2 million accounts. 2 million accounts got opened across the country, with Tamil Nadu having 25% contribution, and we got around 40% conversion through the video KYC channel. What this has happened is, the entire productivity, which normally used to happen in a month, we used to open 20,000 accounts, went up to 2 lakhs accounts a month. The front-end team, whose earlier job was to go and do cold calling and acquire customers, now their only job is to manage these leads. It was completely about long-tail management. So now this entire digital transformation, which has been forced onto us, has now become a positive for the brand, is that now productivity has gone up. Customers now, acquisition is happening at a very cheaper rate. Earlier, the acquisition used to be at 4,000 to 5,000 rupees. Now the cost of acquisition has come down as low as 400 to 500. The opportunity for cross-sell has also happened because of these customers coming from different set of PIN codes, and we have multiple products which you can pitch in. So for us, the marriage between the digital and phygital is perfectly summing up in terms of profitability, one in terms of acquisition, and our phygital channel is used in terms of driving values. In terms of banking, especially money is an emotion. So acquiring a customer is pretty easy. But in terms of any customer who wants to put in value, he needs to have a relationship manager. So what we have now done is we have got VRMs assigned based on certain PIN codes who are catering to these customers. And now we are seeing an upscale in terms of values. So digital, we're using as a strategy to acquire, and phygital, we're using in terms of productivity and driving values. So Equitas, I think we have taken up this entire new age, right spirit, and things are working out. And we are the very few banks who are also taking the fintech space very aggressively. We are tied up with the fintech called Neo. I think all of you must be aware of this Neo, which has transformed in terms of the millennial space. So that again is one of our classic strategy, how we are looked at acquiring customers using a new age technology of Neo, and that has also added in terms of our growth. So we are very much happy in terms of how our entire strategy is shaping up, and we are well poised in terms of a growth story. Thank you.
So your transformation, of course, is helping you reduce the cost of customer acquisition, you're saying. Serving customers, is it making a difference actually? I mean, if the serving a customer cost was X earlier, has that come down because of your digital transformation now, or?
Correct. So in banking, what they say we measure is mobile banking, right? So if you have 60% above customers are mobile banking active, which means that we are going to be in a profitable zone, right? That's one key parameter which we keep driving in terms of mobile banking activation. And if you look at any of the banking, be it any BFSI space, walk-ins to branches have gone down drastically, right? It's all going to be self-induced services. So what this entire VRM channel which we are looking at, whose specific job is to engage with these customers through multiple channels, and all these actions happens by the customer through their mobile banking. So the activation too has gone up with adoption of digital.
Kavitha, question to you. You are a keen observer as a communication planner of the dynamism that's taking place in this omni-channel world. You know the story that I was telling you some time back on the Taj story, right? So just for the consumption of the audience, so there is this Taj hotel in Gurgaon where I could afford that when I was part of the agency circuit. We had a deal with them, so you stay there as a startup entrepreneur. Now you look at booking.com and what is the cheapest hotel available. One fine evening when I landed up in Gurgaon and I had a presentation next morning, so I decided that I'll go and stay in Taj. So I called them up and they were very warm because the people, they all knew me. So they said, okay, come sir. And I walked in there and they said, we've given an upgrade, you're going to be staying in a suite. And I was very, very happy. And that night I put that in social media. And the agency probably would have picked that up and saying, thank you for talking about us. Next morning I go, pay the bill. Tuck, I get an email saying, can you rate us on a scale of 1 to 5? I said, I just did that last night. I reviewed you, I gave you a rating. But these systems are not interconnected. These systems are disjointed. So therefore, the question to Kavitha is that, do you actually see brands making these investments in this omni-channel, omni-connect and bringing this piece together? Are there any examples that you really have of anything that you've seen? Or the lack of it actually, and what's your observation on that?
Yeah, actually speaking about convergence and where we are talking about seamless convergence happening, I think we still have a long way to go across categories. And one such example, I think all of us would have probably experienced it. So owning a credit card of a particular bank and you still get another call saying that, ma'am, would you be interested in having a credit card? And I'm calling from this bank. I mean, they wouldn't even check the database that already the consumer is having this and, she's having a long-term relationship with the bank. And this happens, I think, to almost all of us. So that convergence still has a long way to go. And especially if you look at the three categories that I was also mentioning to you about banking, mobile, and fashion as a category. These were the early adopters on the digital transformation bit. I mean, I think all these three had about decades. I think we are almost a decade old when it comes to digital transformation. But still the convergence, I don't think is there in terms of, even in these three categories, which were the pioneers in terms of digital transformation.
Are there any brands, according to you, that you think are investing in,
I think the brands have started investing. The brands have started investing in that, and we are progressing there. But still, there's a long way to go, is what I feel. And I think the brands which have interacted in the past or interacting right now, everybody is taking that step. So some are slightly slow, so they're just getting into the digital transformation mode. Some are in the convergence mode. So it's progressing.
So if I may add, I mean, because it's a important.
Do you guys want to add anything?
Yeah.
Just pick up and keep.
So what it is doing, because even on the sell side of it, it is throwing interesting opportunities for at least the fashion side of the retailer side of the businesses. You're able to sell more comprehensively, right? I mean, there's a retail term that we use called basket size. If I'm selling you a shirt, can I sort of sell you one more piece? And the way you train your staff with entire the database knowledge, and if I know you, if you're a loyal customer, prior information, that piece is becoming stronger. It is also creating opportunities for business models which were earlier not viable. For example, the entire co-creation and customization business, which is a very bespoke couture kind of a business, now can get simplified by technology. Now this is a layer on top of your existing business. You apply technology, you have to align only one part of the organization, and the benefit that you give to consumer is immense. So I think some of these things are happening. Third thing, I think we were in discussion with a startup who is, the sizing is an issue, right? Now, if I can take your picture and can sort of convert it into a sizing measurement, I can serve you better. Now, some of these things are what we will see, and we are talking about convergence. I think we will see some disruptions. Some business model disruptions will happen faster than convergence, because the idea of convergence is the old will merge into new, but I don't think the old will exactly remain the way old was. You will have a certain amount of assumptions which will get questioned, certain amount of ways of doing business will get questioned. I sometimes think that the current overall lead time for us to think about something and get into the store will be the first to get challenged. If any sort of convergence or any sort of technological benefit needs to happen and make meaningful differences.
And actually, BFSI space, I think one of the critical part which we are all working towards is how do we leverage on data. Today, acquisition is not a challenge for us. Retention and profitability has become a biggest challenge. Because today what is happening is all these half KYC accounts, if it is not going to get converted within 12 months, that's a time frame, these accounts are going to get closed. So even more importance is that we are now started investing quite a bit of money in terms of data warehouse, where we look at these customers in a different angle. We look at the past data. We look at PIN codes as a very critical parameters. Just to give you some insights, India has 19,400 PIN codes. Out of the 19,400 PIN codes, Equitas has opened account in 5,400 PIN codes. Now, how do you classify these customers? Unless investment happens in terms of understanding these, the past data, and then looking at a strategy, it's going to be very difficult in terms of connecting. And all these customers are digitally active customer. So your traditional methods of reaching out is not going to work out. We need to be very proactive in terms of attacking them where they came from. So a lot of investment, a lot of study is happening in terms of how do we ensure that we leverage on data and how do we get insights out of it. The work is happening and our challenge remains in the BFSI space in terms of activation and making customer profitability. That is something we are working on. And omni-channel, I think if anyone is talking about omni-channel, I think investment in data is must. Otherwise, this entire creating an experience falls flat, right? I think all brands who are keeping, and I think as a marketer, the challenge for this decade is going to be how we are going to cater to the customer who are going to be demanding. We've all heard this term, customer is the king. And this is the right era where the customer is actually dominating because customer is used to consumer-facing brands like Swiggy, Zomatos, Ola, where he sees convenience, where he sees everything coming at his mobile. And transparency is very critical. And it's relevant for all the brands. Start adapting to what consumer wants and redefine the strategy accordingly. I think for that, data is going to be the most important thing.
Actually, yeah, in the consumer's path to purchase, there is a lot of change that has happened. So phygital is the way to go. I mean, in most of the cases, either they search online and come and buy, or they come visit the store and buy online. So either which way, the transformation is happening. And we have to really look at where exactly do we want to reach out to the consumer. Is it at the initial stage of consideration or at the end stage where the actual purchase is happening? And convergence there is highly critical for any brand to, succeed today.
Unlike what used to happen earlier, where there's this whole funnel of awareness, preference, consideration, purchase, we all know those funnel that consumers used to go through. Now it's a circular motion. That's what people say. Like you discover, you purchase. Right? So if you're able to be getting in the discovery stage where you create ambassadors for your business and help other people discover your business. Right? You made a very interesting point about, training people, etc. In fact, I was reading this article about Akasa, the new airline. So if you see the uniform, their staff, their air hostesses wear sneakers, not the shoes. And one of the reasons why they say they wear sneakers is that if my employees are rejuvenated, my employees don't get tired, because apparently there was an article sometime back about a Delta Airways air hostess who actually put on social media that I walked 10,000 steps in the plane on the aisle serving customers in a high-heeled shoes. So of course, when you do that, there is fatigue. So when you're fatigued, obviously you're not serving your customers well. So brands are, I think, starting to look at all of this. So are there any, since you obviously keep talking to clients and deal with a lot of clients, Kavitha, any examples about the way that you may look at, as consumers, we look at disruption that you spoke about differently versus the brand owners. The brand owners probably will believe that, okay, I am like disruption proof. But as consumers, when we look at it, there are also researchers that's proving that, right? Consumers say that, no, this brand is prone to disruption. But the brand owners say, no, I'm disruption proof myself. Do Do you come across scenarios like that with your clients? You're breaking your head with your clients, and clients say, no, I have proof, I'm future-proofed. So where do you see this whole thing?
Actually, I think the clients are to a major extent aware of the transformation that is happening, but most of them are hesitant to actually, or probably trying to find ways to actually get into this, omni-channel convergence. So while some of them are, aware of it, but they're trying to see how they can go about, some are in that stage where they are right now, like what I said, getting into the digital transformation mode. So, especially the retail clients are right now getting into having a social media page, getting into e-commerce. So the transformation, they are right now in that stage. So omni-channel or convergence can happen only after they establish all the channels, and then the seamless integration comes into picture. That's where I was saying that, brands still have a long way to go, some of the brands.
Do you guys as brand owners and marketeers, at some point in time, go back to your customers and ask them this question? That, how often do you take customers' feedback into consideration in your transformation journey, for example? Right? You're saying that, okay, I am, as a brand owner, you could really believe that everything is going hunky-dory. But what are the checks and balances that happens with the real consumers, and how do you do that? Do you do that at all, and how do you do that? Both of you can probably answer that here.
So every time we go to Equitas mobile banking, customer has an option of giving a rating. And we have a separate team called customer experience team, whose job is to ensure that the rating is not going less than 4. And if it is going less than 4, immediately a call goes up to these customers, bucketing, sampling size, and then find out what are the real issues. And we have a team which ensures that we fix up, because as I told you in the beginning, for us mobile banking is a very important channel. Because mobile banking standalone today, 60% of our entire business happens through DIY, right? So we cannot afford to go wrong in terms of our mobile banking or internet banking. So every time a transaction happens, rating customer is given. And in our website too, the Net Promoter Score is something we definitely look at as one of the key KPIs in terms of measurement. So we have a separate investment done in terms of customer experience team. And every quarter, if I'm right, every quarter we do surveys with senior citizens, because 20% of a book are senior citizens. We do a surveys and understand what are the areas of improvement. And based on that, we need to present to a product committee, to the board. These are the changes. And we also invite few customers for the committee meetings and get an overall picture, what does the consumer want. That's our internal research, but we have also hired an external agency who does every half-yearly once the brand health scorecard from the consumer point of view. And those inputs they will be taken up seriously in terms of implementation. And we do have a mechanism also to go back and inform the customer, your suggestions has been accepted and we are working on improvements in areas. So we do take customer voice very seriously.
So for me, there are two parts to this question. One is the process part of it. How well do you know your consumers of today? Right? And therefore, as I mentioned, every company has very established processes, and how well do you do processes? In our company, the product and the creative person has to meet, go to the store and meet 10 consumers a month. I normally meet 5 to 10 consumers a month in different focus group meeting, etc., etc. There are net promoter scores, that kind of a survey. That is part one, is saying how are you serving them today, right? But I think the conversation is, what does brand stands today, and how does this brand inspire and continue to inspire consumers of tomorrow? That is a different question to answer, which this process will not answer, right? Because this is the first process approach is solving your current delivery glitches in certain amount. You may actually get some top level data, or if you dig deep and say, okay, how do I move and shift the center of gravity of the brand? And therefore, this is you require a certain amount of what I call horizon scanning, which as a process is not available. And that is what, if you ask one of my top worries is that, are we doing enough of horizon grazing to see what can come and disrupt my business? And that is actually a big worry. Because when COVID came, we are unprepared, a lot of us. I mean, it is suddenly what was your bread and butter, 80% of the business didn't exist anymore. The way you run a company through cash, through credit, not there. So once that happens, you have to figure out a different way of surviving, we sort of adjusted well, but what is the next wave coming? And if you look at everything and you piece together every piece of information, this is going to be a more and more demanding customer. Their way they seek and discover and go about their life is going to be very different. So the brand, what a dream capital that you have, that needs to be refreshed. On what basis are you going to refresh it? That requires a very different kind of thinking, almost very different from operatingly running the business. Apart from the mechanics of investing and integrating everything and bringing different systems into play, it perhaps is it's a winning, competence of how do I cause the next change. That is what I think all of the brand owners are thinking currently.
Very,
I think
very
it's
valid
about
one.
brand experience that you're talking about. Finally,
Because why do people shop? Earlier it was of necessity. At least in our category, there is no necessity for you to go and buy one more shirt, trouser. Look, it's as staple as it can get. What you're really looking for, and that is my understanding, is experience. You need to walk into a store feeling inspired. It's an emotional. That's why even in South India, people go to Starbucks and have a coffee. The filter coffee is far better and it's cheaper also, right? But that's an experience. That emotionally does something for you, right? What is the lever that is going to unlock your emotion? And can I understand what is going to unlock the next generation of consumers' emotion? And am I prepared today for it? Am I making the investment today for a business of tomorrow? I think is the biggest challenge. And convergence is probably one way to answer it. But I think what we all need to develop and get better is that horizon scanning. I think what tsunami is going to come tomorrow and destroy everything that you think is the gospel truth in this world. Right? What I call it ability to see around the bend. That I think is not a process answer. It's somewhere almost being perpetually dissatisfied with the status quo. I think that is a mindset change which will drive perhaps convergence.
So I think, like we were some time back saying, the difference between customer service and customer experience, right? You spoke customer experience, right?
Yeah.
So there is a fundamental difference between service and experience, right?
I think
Kavitha,
one
you
classic
want to say?
example as a consumer, I would say, not as an observer, not my client as well. So Eureka Forbes. So earlier, there used to be this huge backlash in terms of the data that they had. So when they come and the salespeople sell it, it was a door-to-door selling that they were initially having. So when that was happening, it used to be very difficult for us to call and get a service done for any of the products that were there. I think they have really worked on that, and today you get SMSs, you get alerts saying that your warranty is getting over, so you want to have additional warranty, AMCs, services. So they've really worked on getting that omni-channel, convergence and how actually they can get the data. And data is extremely critical to have that, and seamlessly they are now having. So when you give a call, they have the list of all the products that you have from them and which product you want for which AMC. So the data is completely there, and it is very nice. It's a nice brand experience that you finally get when that completely is there as a brand. So that's where I think we should end up with.
And, often, Suman, valid point that often hearing the customers, if you're able to have a process of you hear the consumers. Kavitha, you're a media planner, I've been there. So, you know how researchers are done, right? You guys know that, right? We want to validate a hypothesis. You go to the customer to tell the customer, tell me this is what you think, right? It's a close-ended question. Because you want to hear the customer say that. Do we even have a process of actually talking to consumers, having a conversation with consumers, right? Which is when customer probably, in my opinion, I could be completely wrong, I can be corrected by the marketeers, that customer service move into customer experience. The customer service, in my opinion, is reactive.
Correct.
That's service, right? You call the call center is saying, oh, you called me, I'm going to solve the problem for you. It's reactive. Customer experience is absolutely proactive. The customer is not seeking anything from you, but you're proactively telling him, your wife's birthday is coming up, sir. What can we send her a bouquet of flowers, etc. If you're able to move those customers from here to that bucket, that they could be high value customers for you always, right? And they are the customers who will actually have conversations with you. So I think the challenges that brands probably go through in the world of convergence is to moving these customers up from this bucket to the other bucket actually, right? So is there any work that's happening in your businesses on this? Or do you see it as do you see customer service and customer experience as different buckets?
So I will touch base upon the customer experience part. We have this HNI product called Elite Banking. So the entire experience from the acquisition stage to the welcome kit which goes to the customer is thoughtfully planned. And for these elite set of customers, their entire experience, be it their mobile app, be it the call center, there is no waiting time for them. If an elite customer is calling, the system picks up in the backend, and the call directly leads to the VRM, who's the bank becomes in far higher, and he becomes a brand advocate. What this has seen is in last 2 years of investment, we have got some reference from these HNI bankers. We got some 2-3 people they were able to pull in. So this has helped us in terms of getting more customers and more high-end customers because of the service, the quality which we have delivered. So for us, experience matters to different persona. And just to touch base upon, since omni-channel, English is not the only communication which you look at. I think vernacular is also a very important mode of communication reaching out. Because ultimately the success of any marketeer is your end customer needs to understand what is that you're trying to sell, right? So for us, vernacular too plays a very critical role in terms of delivering most of our service and experiences. So thank you.
Yeah, so everything that he said, every business must be doing, some may be doing little better, but I will tell you my experience of struggle with this is why it breaks. It breaks because if you're trying to tell only the front end consumer serving guys have one message and the back end is not aligned to that message, right? And that is perhaps links back to if you're saying to a consumer, I'll give hypothetically a 5-star shopping experience, then is the entire organization sort of converging to give that 5-star experience? Does that, for example, you don't like a product, you come into the store, does your store staff has the empowerment to sort of take back the return?
Very correct.
Knowing that 1% of the customers are going to take advantage of it, but are you committed enough?
Correct, absolutely.
Is this guy empowered enough? What is the level of empowerment you're flowing through at different value stages of the value chain to bring in the promise? Which goes back to a bigger conversation of what is the purpose of your existence, and you have to align the purpose internally first before you are ready to even announce it to the consumer, right? So that is where a lot of things, move from being a lip service to a deep agenda, right? And the manifestation has to be everywhere, right? From your retail identity to the way your staff talks to the consumer. Does he talk as equal? Depending on what the brand you are. I mean, how your web page is, right? Do you value commerce or over content, right? So there are different elements, but probably starts with one desire of what the brand exists today for, and therefore you have to solve for each one of these across value chain nodes. And technology has come in today and complicated the question a little more, but with that there is a lot more opportunities.
Absolutely, very, very valid. In fact,
and to add to what Suman said, also how the brand interacts with the consumers in the social platforms. So today, actually, with digital coming in, it has become a two-way communication. So when a customer shares his experience, be it negative or positive, how the brand reacts to that also matters to what the brand stands for to a consumer.
Yeah, absolutely. No, that's in fact, very valid, actually. There is a practitioner called Simon Sinek. I don't know, I'm sure you probably would have heard is the theory of why, what, and how. Exactly says the same thing, Ilyach, right? When the human brain is exactly in the same way. The neocortex part of the brain, limbic part of the brain, emotions are the why part. And brands, the why for the brands today is about making money, right? So what do? I have a fabric, I have a bank. How do I do it? I do it by doing X, Y, Z. Why? Come and give me money because I want a share of your wallet. If it actually becomes, the conversation becomes the other way around, saying that why do I exist, the reason. Jeff Bezos says, I will lose money to keep my customers happy. That's his stated mantra, right? And they do that. Amazon, in my opinion, is probably the best customer service in terms of even return policies and whatever. And the reason why that's happening is that because each person at the company is empowered. That also comes with that, as you're rightly saying, culture. Right? When you say customer centricity, the CEO and the person who opens the door both needs to kind of own that as a culture in the organization. So all of this is part of that. Last question before we get in there. Vignesh spoke about data. Kavitha, you're obviously in the world of data, you guys can also add that up actually. In saying that there is a world that we are seeing that the third-party data are going to go away, cookies are going to be crumbling, and all that is a conversation which is going around. Obviously, it might take a little while. In a world like that, obviously there's a lot of cookie reliance today on data and so on and so forth. In a world like that, what are the preparations clients are doing according to you in terms of data practice? There are wall gardens, which is all the wall gardens that they have clean first-party data. Are clients looking at first-party data? Are your clients, for example, in data conversations, etc., are they looking at first-party data, storing them, figuring out something to do with the data? Are these conversations emerging somewhere actually in the data?
Yeah, I think that is happening, and today I think almost all the clients have realized the importance of getting the data, curating it, and seeing how actually the data can actually help their business in some form. And so it's happening. So I think at least they've started with collecting the data stage. So it's happening, and it is definitely there. And I think almost all the clients whom I'm talking to are into that. But some are in the stage of collecting, some are in the stage of curating, and some are in the stage of, putting it to use as to how it can be helpful for future. Like what Suman was mentioning in terms of reward points or loyalty, or identifying the HNA consumers and treating them in a different way. So it's happening in some, but I think almost all clients are aware of the importance of data.
And investing in also.
Yeah.
You spoke about Suman. Are you investing in data?
There is investment. So therefore the advantage to these days is there are many startups who are coming with very quick, very astute kind of insight generation engine. Is probably, the opportunity space is very high today. You don't have to commit to a large part of your resources, but we are doing 3-4 pilots. I can't sort of name each one of them, but what they're promising, and if that output comes, is very, very, very powerful, right? And my sort of evaluation criteria is how much of this insight is actionable, because that's when all that matters. So right from reading and predicting shopping behavior to predicting some kind of an attitude basis, whatever they're studying, it boils down to ultimately, can it funnel down to an insight which the practitioner of that function can actually translate and change one thing, right? That is what I really, really keenly look at. I think there is possibility, there is investment being made. Good news is that you don't need to sink a fortune into it.
Correct.
Cheaper.
At least now.
Cheaper, more nimble, and quite easy to fail solutions are becoming available.
Yeah.
Right. So I think we are in a state where we are sort of snacking a lot of items till you figure out, this is where I think we're going to solidify. At least that's what I am in.
So just to probably sum up the conversation, all of the stuff that we spoke, and what I could pick up from the whole thing is that, of course, both the physical and digital channels is here to stay, right? I mean, it's not like one is going to replace the other in the near term, at least. Although e-commerce, we've seen, COVID has given it a head start, and 2 years of head start is what everybody's talking about. I think $90 billion or whatever, I think, is the retail spent on e-commerce, the number that I was looking at. And with 70% of Indian population having an active internet thing, and about 250 million people buying online, etc. It's basically a large number. Still, I think from business's point of view, your business is a trust-based business, right? It's money that you're dealing with. Your business is a touch and feel business where people want to try, touch, and whatever, right? So is there a term that you see that, probably both of this could come to an equal level at some point in time? Or in your business, because of the way that you guys are structured, it's always going to be the physical will be always, predominant. How do you see your business?
So today, digital contributes 10% of our CASA, right? So which earlier used to be nil, it now started becoming 10% contribution. So we see that digital over the period of time should definitely contribute around 20-25%, but phygital is here to stay, right? Especially in the BFSI space, the values will come in the phygital channel, and investment in people will happen. right? Digital will be used as a medium to acquire and to save cost, right? To acquire customers, to save a lot of process. Just to give you a heads up, we are in terms of small finance bank space, we are completely paperless. Today, any of our account opening, be it any of our front-end executive, he carries a tab. Our entire full KYC process is through tab or is it through a fingerprint, right? So the entire front-end team is transformed digitally. But the values will still come from the phygital channel, which I think next decade, at least for 5 to next 10 years, I think it's going to continue. And if digital is going to contribute 25 to 30%, I think we have achieved our target. So we are looking at 30% contribution from digital, 30%.
But 10% currently.
Currently 10% is our contribution. We are expecting another 20% in next 5 to 10 years.
What about your business, Suman?
I think there is a distinction to be made between when we were using technology to get efficiency. Now, I think the businesses will have to pivot themselves how consumers are living their life and how they are moving. If they're moving and discovering through digital, then you need to pivot your business. And then there is a distinction between digital footprint and e-commerce. Those are two, again, separate things, right? So, like any good astrologer, you have to say everything can happen, right? So maybe everything will coexist. But the rate of change is so unexpected. It is difficult to predict, but given all that you have, if businesses are not pivoting in line with consumers, I think you're going to be in trouble. That's, I think, is the uneasiness that everyone of us should live with.
Good. Kavitha, we are both in the
I
media
think
space. You want to add something to that?
Yeah, I think it depends on the categories.
You,
yeah, I think it depends on the categories.
Yeah, so that's the question that I was coming to. So let me ask the question. Okay. That is the question that I was coming to. So I'm saying that we've seen the IPL bid this year, right? We're both in the media business. We have seen the first time that IPL is equal in television, which never happened. And we've seen television spends. You see all the data and television spends for the first time is going to be, digital spends for the first time is going to be equal to television spends, which is we've seen in the media sector. Do you see any category which is going to go that way from a business perspective, actually, that some digital could disrupt the traditional channels as it exists today and could overtake the traditional business? Any category in your mind? Anything that you think?
In terms of overtaking the traditional route,
Yeah.
you're saying? I think that may not be the case, but it could probably happen after a decade or so. Right now, I don't see that happening. Even like what I was saying in the mobile retail, which is one of the pioneers in digital transformations, I think it's about the contribution is about 50-50 between e-commerce and physical sales. So it still has a long way to go in terms of overtaking the physical contribution. And again, like for example, if you take categories like jewelry or luxury brands, it's still more physical than digital. So there are still some categories which are yet to go there. And overtaking physical, I don't see it happening right now. I mean, that's what
Thank you. Quite insightful. I think there is a lot of stuff that we really spoke about, convergence, data, customer experience, practice, the training and culture, organization culture, all that. I'm sure the audience has picked up something from the conversations. That's the only thing we can expect, and we probably will know that from the question answers. And it says time's up now. I can see that, and we've finished on time, Uma. You're there. Thanks to all of you guys once again, Vijay, Uma, Neetu, and the entire team for having me and having us. Enjoyed doing this conversation. We can take questions on the floor now, probably another 5 minutes, although it shows time's up. So if you have any particular question, you can point to the panelist and ask the question. That will be great. Just keep it for maybe 1 or 2 questions.
Actually, to say it was really very insightful. My question is, it's like, how does the consumer behavior will increase? When it comes to consumer behavior increase, whether it is because of the quality of the product or it is because of the customer service you provide, which gives a more weightage. I'll
pick this up and you can obviously add. in my personal opinion, I think gone are the days when people went to a brand or a store because they gave a great product. Those days are gone, right?
Yes.
You have to have a great product, but you also have to have great service. If you don't have that in equal measures, I think your sustenance will become difficult. That's my personal opinion.
The way I understood your question is, and therefore I'm answering in that fashion, is that aspirations nowadays are racing faster than what is the availability. That is what information age has done. You may be living in one city and certain amount of product and services are not available, but thanks to information technology, you've actually caught up with that aspiration, right? Now, if you do not get that aspiration fulfilled by any solution that you avail, there is going to be a disconnect. So therefore, there was a time that he's mentioning where brands were leading consumers in terms of what is possible and what is going to be a delight. Now consumers are, the rate of increase in aspiration is so high. Brands have a lot of catch up to do. It's who is leading whom is now the question. And some categories, some businesses, it is different. But I think, and this is from our experience of a tier 3, tier 4 business in some assignment, where the expectation of consumer is gone really, really way past, just because he's not consuming the goods, but he's just, or he or she has just had the information of what's really out there in the market. And therefore that has driven ambition. And therefore brands have to catch up. That's my understanding of what you asked. I don't know if I answered.
And just to give an add-on, I think two things which matters in terms of winning any consumer is that you have to win his heart and you have to win his mind, right? I think the first and the most important is you have to win his mind, which means your product needs to be superior. But the customer will not stay with you if your service is not proper. So which means if you have to win the customer's heart, you have to put both the product and the service in the right way together.
Experience and product both, because you're willing to pay a price for a particular product for the quality that it offers, right?
Yes.
And along with that, if you don't get the right service, you may probably buy it once or twice because you want a great product, but somewhere it will die down.
Hi, my name is Sarang. So I head the business development for Brand Kavitha. So my question is, let's say there's a brand now in market, or it is coming into the market, where it has the potential to buy all the social media, buy all the social media and other platforms which we are marketing. So is there any possibility that he can actually buy the customers through marketing? The entire pumping inside money on marketing, like mainly digital marketing, smartphones and ATL. That's the main thing I'm connecting with. So is it possible a brand can come in, pump in money and launch their product and take all the customers who are actually loyal with other brands in one go? Is it possible?
I think, like I told you, right? I got the question. So, like I told you, right, today most of the brands are looking at attracting the mind of the customer, which means every customer today is asking, what is in it for me? There is nothing called brand loyalty anymore, right? Brand loyalty will happen over a period of time. It requires a lot of experience centers to be built in, a lot of things which needs to be built in to ensure the customer becomes a loyal. So now most of the brands today, if you look at, including Equitas, what we do is first to attract consumers' mind. Because I can't go and tell them we are good people, right? If you look at our positioning, we say beyond banking. If you see what all we do, I think only when a consumer starts interacting with me, he'll know about my story. But if I go and say that when you bank with me, you contribute to better community, he'll say thank you, right? He'll ask what is it for me? That's the reason why we say that we offer 7% on your savings account. So when I offer 7% of your savings account, you will definitely think it's beneficial for you. So you may think of banking with me. Once you bank with me, right, then you will get to know about our service and multiple other products, right? So winning you for one time is going to be pretty easy, right? Like your question is, if I'm going to spend a lot of money, can I acquire customers? Yes, you will acquire customers, but your challenge is going to be in retention. For that, you need to have a supremely effective, multifunctional department working to ensure the customer becomes profitable, right?
That I definitely agree, sir. My question was, is it possible to acquire like that in one go?
Theoretically, sorry. Sorry, theoretically possible. If you have the only brand in the world and you only all distribution, you all communication, you are the only choice, sure, why not? But access to purchase is not only communication. There is physical, there is physical, assuming you're talking about a physical goods, there is access to distribution also. You may be the most talked about. Are you therefore correspondingly the most available? Right? It's a semi-theoretical question that, can I, by creating enormous amount of visibility, can I sort of, like a Pied Piper, can I take a lot of consumers from other brands? You may, depends on what is the infinite communication and what is the degree of loyalty in the category. But the real question is, are you here to build a business? For building a business, you need repeat business, loyalty, transaction. Someday you'll have to look at whether you're making profit or not.
Yes, that's about the business. I'm talking about the customer perspective. Can anybody force feed the customers with all the creatives?
If the
and
customer
things?
wants to be force-fed, yes, it's
See,
a...
in the set of consumers, you always have these early adopters who would want to try out new stuff which is coming
Exactly,
in the market.
yeah.
So if you are going to pump in money and the visibility is there, definitely you will get some set of customers, not all. And,
You're
and
buying
then
trials.
It depends on
Sorry.
how.
If you're buying trials, I'm not sure you're buying loyalty. That's the difference.
Yeah,
That's what she's
exactly.
trying to say.
I think I'm seeing the time's up again and again there. I think before Uma and team throws us out the stage, I think we should. Thank you guys very much for listening to us. We really enjoyed. Hope you enjoyed too, hearing us. Thank you.